topic. Earlier this morning, Merck shareholders voted overwhelmingly to approve the proposed $41.1 billion merger with Schering-Plough. The deal now places Merck, the world's 8th biggest drug maker by prescription medicine sales, at #2 worldwide, just behind Pfizer. So here to discuss this and what else is happening in Big Pharma is Selvaraju of Hapoalim Securities. Thanks for joining us, Ram.
It's a pleasure to be here, Gigi.
So another wave of consolidation in the sector, but Merck had to do this deal, right?
Absolutely. I think clearly if you look at Merck's pipeline and the challenges that they were facing from patent expirations that had already happened, you could see that they were really facing significant challenges on maintaining the bottom line. In addition to which, I think the main issue for Merck was getting exposure to areas that they had not traditionally been a force in, like biotech drugs and vaccines.
Schering gives them more of a presence in biotech.
Absolutely. And I think also what is interesting with Schering is that they have several interesting aspects to their pipeline. Chief among those would be a drug called TRA, or thrombin receptor antagonist, for certain blood disorders, and also a drug called boceprevir for treatment of hepatitis C infection. Also, they have an interesting pill called ACAR, which actually mimics the effect of exercise in mice. We haven't seen whether that would be replicable in humans, but just think what the market potential of a drug could be that would allow you to essentially exercise while sitting on your couch.
That would be amazing.
Absolutely.
So this merger is widely seen as positive, but there are some drawbacks as well. Isn't the mashing up of research laboratories in the past been seen as a distraction for developing new drugs?
Absolutely, and I think also what is interesting with this particular deal is there is a geographic element to it. Obviously, Schering-Plough had a significant presence in Europe. Over 70% of their sales came from outside the U.S., and Merck traditionally had not had a significant presence in ex-U.S. markets. So there is a broadening of Merck's geographic footprint by acquiring Schering-Plough. In addition to which, coming back to the biotech angle, Schering-Plough had a joint venture on both its biotech drugs with Johnson & Johnson. And this has now created an interesting situation because the acquisition of Schering-Plough by Merck effectively triggers a change of control clause in that arrangement with Johnson & Johnson on these two biotech drugs, Remicade and Simponi, both of which are used to treat rheumatoid arthritis. Remicade is already $1 billion a year drug. Simponi is probably going to go the same way. Now, Johnson & Johnson clearly doesn't like the fact that essentially Merck is going to be taking control of half of those sales of those two biotech drugs. So it's already filed an arbitration suit to trigger that change of control clause, which would effectively allow it to assume control of the entire biotech franchise. So we'll have to see how that goes in the case of the Merck and Schering-Plough merger. But regardless of what happens with the biotech drugs, this was a good move for Merck to make.
So interesting. And keeping on the biotech topic, I mean, it fell off a cliff during the economic recession, but investors are more risk-averse now. Is there a pickup in biotech?
I think, as the economy keeps recovering and we see more and more positive signs, investors are becoming more and more pressed to find uses for their capital. And biotech has obviously been really the purvey of those who are highly risk tolerant because small-cap biotech stocks in particular are extremely volatile. Many biotech companies have long product development life cycles, and therefore they take very long times to actually generate revenue. And throughout that time, they consistently burn cash. So for a biotech banker, they're a good source of repeat business, shall we say. And right now, investors looking for ways to put their capital to work are very happy to pony up for biotech companies looking to put their next exciting drug into pivotal trials and hopefully get across the finish line at the FDA.
And in the headlines today, Bank of America appointing Benjamin Perkins to watch over the healthcare sector, especially biotech. Is that a good sign?
I think that is a good sign, and we've also seen sort of a revolving, game of musical chairs being played among senior biotech and healthcare bankers, primarily because initially at the end of last year and the beginning of this year, the sector was really going through somewhat of a meltdown. And we've really seen the biotech sector come roaring back in recent months, kind of a rash of biotech financings, many companies replenishing their pipelines. Obviously, M&A is really rampant in the space. Just a few weeks ago, we had the $2.4 billion acquisition of Medirex by Bristol Myers Squibb. There again, a large-cap pharmaceutical company choosing to acquire a biotech franchise. And I think part of this has been fueled by the fact that both the Senate and the House of Representatives, respective committees, have voted overwhelmingly in favor of giving 12 years of market exclusivity to branded biologic drugs. And if you recall, this was one of the main debates in the healthcare reform sort of situation, that there were several people who really wanted market exclusivity for these branded biologics to be limited to a significant extent. Now, we don't know what the final period is going to be, but 12 years of market exclusivity looks very encouraging for the biotech sector.
Very encouraging, and a wave of consolidation within the drug industry. Ram Selvaraju, thank you so much for joining us and explaining all of that to us.